Way down to Hades Town, way down under the ground. What's up and welcome back? It's remind me of Hades Town. Not the same story, but everything's Greek, right? Uh, I'm John Stark, MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today I'm talking about The Return. Which one? The Return. That's when you know a return is so great that it need not be explained. You know? Like, there's only one return. Like, man, even like Lord of the Rings had to let you know it was the return of the king. But this one is just the return. Wow. Wow. So, like, I went through my mind and I was like, man, of all the returns in history, which return could this possibly be about? And of course, my mind went to Odysseus returning home. That was exactly where my mind went. Beautiful, beautiful title. It'll totally help people find this movie, which is why it's done $487 million at the domestic box office. If you do not know this movie existed, I forgive you. It's seemingly has flown completely under the radar. It premiered, I know it was at the Toronto Film Festival. I think that was its premiere. It was purchased by Bleecker Street. You know what? Bleecker Street is big enough to be able to put audio description on the film, so I need to stop bitching. Because they, most of the time, have audio description on their movies. I still, like, haven't heard Freud's Last Session with audio description, but, you know, that's, most of their films have audio description, it seems like. So, I did hear this with audio description. And it's Jedediah Barton, by the way, for anybody who's like, oh my god, what is it? They got Jed in there. It's a really good track, actually, especially towards the end in the final the act of the film, third. I don't know. It's a weird film. I guess it's broken up into acts. But this is notably the return of Ray Fiennes and Juliette Binoche to each other. Charlie Plummer's also in this. He was in, National Anthem earlier this year. And so it's sort of like a little good luck charm for Fiennes, who's looking to get an actual Oscar nomination again this year for Conclave, considering the last time he got an Oscar nomination was for The English Patient, which, surprise, he was in with Juliette Binoche, who won that year. So, it all comes back around to something, you know what I'm saying? Like, it all just full circle moments. Everything in life, just full circle. So, Fiennes is returning to Juliette Binoche the same year that he might also be returning to the Oscars. That's the return. He plays Odysseus, and he's haggard and unrecognizable after. I'm not explaining the Odyssey to you if you haven't read it. Anyway, so he returns home after being gone for 20 years, and he's been, like, presumed dead, and people have been pressuring his wife and to remarry, to choose a new suitor. I love that, like, this is the kind of culture where a woman can make a choice and they don't just, like, force one on her. They're not just like, here's Larry. You're going to marry Larry. Take it. Enjoy it. It also helps that she has a son who's, like, grown, who's a plumber. And yeah, there are a bunch of random suitors in this movie played by actors I'm not familiar with. And none of them really there's, like, one that stands out a little bit more than the others in terms of, like, screen time, but not much. It's really about, like, Odysseus finding his way back to being himself again and being, I guess, worthy of her, but there's also a little bit of this, her high expectation that she remembers from the Odysseus of 20 years ago. She's like, well, nobody could be my husband, right? From 20 years ago. And I will wait for him or whatever. He's, you know, he's not, like, she's just holding out for this return from this epic hero, for like a hero's return. And it's debatable as to whether or not she gets that. She seems very conflicted at the end of the movie. So that's the best way I can say it, is that things happen that make sort of the third act of the film interesting, and also sort of the meat of where the audio description is. I actually really enjoy the audio description track. It does a really good job of describing what people look like, even from the very beginning when we first like pulling Fiennes out of the ocean. The people who are pulling him out of the ocean got really solid description. He got really solid description. Everybody, there was like actual character description in this that stood out to me. The film's a little slow working its way towards the end. When you think about Greek mythology, you're probably thinking, oh shit, he's gonna fight Medusa or something like that. It's like, no, this is really about sort of like a love story. This is, you could have made the same movie about like a war hero who was like captured or something and is like returning home after so many years away, and has a lot of trepidation in like, will she still love me? I'm battered and bruised. Am I the same person? You know, like there are a lot of themes here that sort of resonate beyond the return, that it doesn't need to dive fully into the Greek, like by bringing in all the random mythology and the gods and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't need to do that. It just kind of focuses on Fiennes, who once again is giving a very internalized performance. This is why this dude doesn't get Oscar nominations, is because he makes so much out of silence that, you know, he doesn't need to. He should have like 8 Oscar nominations by now. I'm not a huge fan of like over nominating people, which is why every time I've voted, I always sort of mention to people, they're always like, even this year, they're in the actress, we have a very crowded actress race this year in 2024. And every time I've talked to anybody in any of my guilds about it, I'm always like, you know what? I don't feel like voting for Angelina Jolie, Nicole Kidman, Kate Winslet, even Saoirse Ronan, because it's like, those are not their best performances. I can list like 5 performances of theirs each that are like better than those performances. So I'm not necessarily rooting, although Jolie is closer. Jolie's probably got the closest to being in her top, but they have such a wealth of performances. I mean, is Kate Winslet's Lee even in the top 10 of her performances? Like, some of these things, it's just like, what are we doing? I don't like the Meryl Streep thing where she has like 18 nominations because there are a whole bunch of supporting actresses along the way, or actresses who could have gotten a nomination for some films that are rather forgettable, like Music of the Heart. Who cares? You know, like, so I don't want Ralph Fiennes to have 8 nominations, but also at the same time, he's the kind of actor that I feel like it is weird to say he hasn't been nominated since The English Patient. That's weird. Because you think about some of the films in between, like Constant Gardener comes to mind, obviously The Reader, and honestly, he was fucking great as Voldemort, if we're being honest. I know that's like not necessarily like Oscars weren't really looking at him, but it's one of those things where you look back on him and you go, yeah, he was really great. We could have nominated that. I don't think people would have been mad at it. You know what I'm saying? I think that was just a thing that Oscar voters were, you know, above. We're too above that. It's like, I guess for the film, but can't you separate the performance? Like, he's a great Voldemort. Anyway, so yeah, it's it's tough. So like, I do think he feels like somebody who should have more or have won by now, but at the same time, I also not like really an 8 nomination type of person. I like to spread the love. There's so many great actors out there who have never been nominated, or and actors who pass away before they ever get nominated, and it's just really sad. So, before they ever get their due, as it were. Um, and Binoche, obviously, I just want to see her in more things. I think she's a great actress, so I'm glad that she's here and in a lead role again. Um, Her work, she just kind of seems to bounce around and get work when offered, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. It just depends. But I think she's a fantastic actress as well. So these two are killing the game. Charlie Plummer also, I liked him in National Anthem. I thought he had some really nice moments. I liked the parts of National Anthem that maybe were the quieter ones, like between him and his little brother. So here, it's kind of a different vibe, and I liked the vibe that he was putting out in this role. So I enjoyed the movie. It does get a little slow if you're expecting it to be like an action movie, because it's not, but it's really well described. It's well acted. And it's more of a thought piece on love standing the test of time. The idea, the memory of something versus the reality of something, and the trepidation of returning to what once was when you are no longer the thing that you were. And is there, when you feel like a shadow of your former self, is there something still there that you can pull from to regain that strength? And that's sort of how Odysseus builds back into. So it's got a pretty decent critic score. I saw somebody put this on their bottom 10 of 2024, and I think that's really unfair. Like, they just didn't see enough movies. I've seen over 420. And so when people are saying, like, I've seen 120, and I'm like, girl, you did not see. Get these 10 films away. Like, I'm not hearing Tarot anywhere on your list. I'm not hearing The Strangers Chapter 1. I'm not hearing, I'm not hearing some of these films that are pretty much universally panned. That person didn't have, like, The Crow, Borderlands. It's like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? So, yeah, I liked The Return. I didn't love The Return. And definitely in terms of Fiennes getting an Oscar nomination this year, it's going to be for Conclave. But this is going to be like an underrated movie, I think. So give it a look-see. Give it a once-over. It is a drama. It's a drama. It has some action elements to it towards the end of the film when, like I'm mentioning, trying without spoilers, that Odysseus, it's sort of about him sort of like regaining that who he once was. So when he finds that strength, there's a little bit of that in there towards the end of the film, but it's going to take you a while to get there, and you just have to be okay with that, because he's struggling in the beginning. Like, he's like referred to as a beggar or the stranger. It's like, he's Odysseus, but at the same time he's like referred to constantly as like the stranger. So anyway, and like a beggar and stuff like that. People think he's just like a beggar. Like, nobody even recognizes him. So, well, mostly nobody recognizes him. Anyway, The Return, I'm going to give it a B. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.